Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Azazel. So today's Daily Run felt very satisfying, and I use a lot of words that describe a daily run. Sometimes I say they're bad, sometimes I say they're good, but this one felt right. And why I say that is because I had two bombs early on the very first floor. I used both of them, and not only did I manage to find the super secret room, but also managed to find the secret room. So first of all, you might be wondering, why did you say the super secret room first? Well, that's because on the first floor, I think it's easier to find the super secret room as opposed to the secret room due to how those room generations work. So super secret rooms have to neighbor one room, exactly one room, and the secret room can neighbor 2, 3, or 4. Usually it's 3, but on the very first floor it's very hard to gauge because the floors tend to be smaller, which means there are less rooms and less chances that a particular room will spawn in that location. So for that reason I feel like it's easier to find the super secret room. But in this particular game, in this particular run, I did manage to find both, and whenever that happens, it usually sets a very good precedent. Not only because you tend to find consumables in there, which makes the rest of the run feel a lot easier, so you can use the keys to go to the treasure rooms, you can use the keys to go to the shops, but in this particular case we got a lot of money, and money is great, just in real life, but also in the game as well, because it does allow you to buy, I would say, good items overall, and if you ever find yourself in a position where you need more consumables, if you need a key, if you need a bomb, and if you have a way to go to the shop, you always have that money to rely back onto, so you can always spend it and buy that key if need be. And the best part about it is, if you find a key, it's stuck in your inventory, right? It's obviously a good idea to have a key, but in the case of the shop, and if you have the money, you might say, but I don't really want to spend my money on a key because I might need something better later down the road. That's very fair, but the great part about it is, if there is a shop and if there is a key, you can only spend it once you know it's going to be useful to you. Obviously, I think that having at least one key is always going to be a good idea because it's going to allow you to go to those important rooms later down the road, which is going to allow you to get a lot stronger overall throughout the run and just get more points in the end. But you still have the option, and this is something that maybe didn't really come up in this particular daily, but sometimes you might end up having like 15 cents. And you might say, well, I want 15 cents so I can actually buy an item on the next floor, but at the same time, if I manage to spend 5 cents now, I can use a key to go to the shop or maybe to the library, which will allow me to get maybe a very good active item and perhaps maybe a book for transformation. So in that position, you might say, well, I think that getting some damage or just getting a good active item is more important as opposed to saving the money. So then you could decide, well, I'm going to spend the 5 cents now and hope maybe that I would get 5 cents in another part of on the next floor, for example, just to that would allow me then to buy a shop item if there was one. So again, maybe a little bit convoluted, but you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to say, if you have money, and if you have money in your inventory, it's a good idea to save it because you can use it basically when you need to use it. And having so much money, especially in the very first and the second floor, is really gonna allow you to spiral out of control. So as the run went on, because I had a lot of consumables on the earlier floors, I managed to get 2 bombs. And the treasure room was actually right next to the secret room. So even though we didn't have enough keys to get into it, we had enough bombs. And that allowed us to eventually get to Proptosis. And Proptosis is really, really good on Azazel because effectively Proptosis decreases your damage the farther your enemy is away from you. But because with Azazel we have very low range, that means we're always dealing increased amount of damage to enemies that are nearby to us. And what's even better is, even if I pick up items like Sinto or maybe other range upgrades, it's not gonna reduce your damage past a certain point. And maybe what's even better, because we picked up Maw of the Void, it doesn't really synergize or dis-synergize in some sense, anti-synergize, I guess that's gonna be a better way to put it, with Proptosis, so you're always gonna deal that base damage that you have. It also works really well with flies, and Proptosis obviously is just a great item overall, but it's even better with Azazel just because of all of the things I've mentioned now. So we were really set in that damage department. We were also very set in the consumables department. So is there anything else that this run needed? And past a certain point, I don't really think there was. Everything kind of set out itself on the right path. And maybe what's a very good idea or a good indication that it's going to be a strong run and you can really start to utilize it and optimize it in a way that's going to allow you to get the most points in the end is going to be when you say, well, I have plans for floors or rooms that are coming up. So in this case, we have the Chaos card, and obviously I'm intending to use that on the Hush. But what's even better is, because I have the Chaos right in this exact moment, I know I don't have to worry about Hush later down the road, and I can just use it, and that's gonna allow me to reduce a lot of the headache that I would otherwise get if I was trying to fight Hush with Azazel. And what allowed me to get to this point is exactly all of the items I've described before. So with this in mind, it's just a nice idea, or just a nice feeling to have basically a contingency plan, or just a plan A in this particular case, to deal with some of the harder floors or harder rooms that that usually we wouldn't be able to deal with very efficiently. So we have a lot of damage, we have a way to deal with some of those very nasty rooms, and the only other thing I would say this run needed past a certain point is just to really get a little bit more defense. So either get a few more orbitals, or later down the road we get the Holy Mantle, and at that point the run felt perfect. And we have so much damage, we have a way to generate a lot of consumables, I think, because of Sackhead and also the deck of cards, and that allows us not only to have a lot of mapping, so we can be very efficient in our exploration, but also it does allow us to use the keys, not the keys, but the sacks to get more consumables, of course the keys as well. I was talking about the keys because we need a 2 of spades if we actually want to get to 99 keys, so we would actually maximize in that department as well. But mainly we're getting a lot of battery charges, and using those battery charges with the deck of cards increases our chances of getting a 2 of spades, which is something I just mentioned. And that would of course allow us to get a lot of Shrek bonus, so really we were really set in all departments of this run. So by getting the Holy Mantle, we're at 24 damage at 18 tear delay, so we're doing a ridiculous amount of damage. We have Maw of the Void, and because our range is relatively high, we're actually doing a lot of damage to enemies which are quite far away from us. And because we have so much AoE, and because Maw of the Void also spawns black hearts, we're also set in that department. So really the only thing that's missing now is just finding a way to break the game, get a Forget Me Now, and maybe the clicker, which would reduce all of the items or item penalty that we have past this point. And maybe another thing I would like to mention is that if you're gonna check the footage and if you're gonna be paying attention to just how much damage I've taken throughout the run, it's not a lot, but the majority of the damage I've taken is by just me walking into enemies. I was very uncareful. So a lot of the damage I've taken throughout the run was bad damage, but still somehow I managed to actually rank up in a really good spot. And the majority of that is just by using and realizing that the items I found throughout the run are gonna be items that are gonna help me out in the end. So either by providing some defense, or either by providing some consumables, or either just by, like I said before, having some contingency plans for some of those harder rooms. So just by having that knowledge in my head, I can basically navigate throughout the run without necessarily playing that well, and still manage to rank up in a really good spot. So if this and the Yesterday's Daily are gonna teach you anything, is that you don't have to be a good player if you wanna rank well. You just have to know what you're doing, and like I said, maybe watching these videos helps some of you, but more importantly, if you just play and practice and experience, and I think the most important part here is experimentation, just trying to take guesses, just try maybe to do some math in your head, and just seeing maybe which things work and which don't, and in the end then you realize that sometimes you don't even have to be that good of a player to end up in a really good spot. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.